The company is called Green for All. My guest is Van Jones. Thank you so much for joining us.
Let's give it up for Van Jones and Steve Carrera. All right, I am going to do the introduction of this man. And I hope to God, at some point, before I finish, he walks through one of these doors somewhere in here. So I'm hoping this is like a 1-minute introduction. If not, I'm going to have to figure out a way to make it maybe the longest introduction he has ever had. Daniel, how far out is he?
5-6 minutes.
You. All right, you guys ready?
More basketball.
More basketball. All right, so let me give you some background on who he is. Born in Washington, D.C., I think you know that. Parents, Ethel Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy. He was the third of 11 children. You know his uncles, John F. Kennedy and Teddy Kennedy. He graduated from Harvard, went to the London School of Economics, earned a law degree from the University of Virginia School of Law, earned a master's degree in environmental law at Pace University. He's been married a couple times. Has 6 kids. He's an attorney specializing in law. His passions are, did I say that right? His passions. Steve Combs, stand on up. Let's give a round of applause for Steve Combs. It's another attorney who specializes in law. His passions are, he's a master falconer. Does anybody know what that is? Raise your hand if you also are a falconer. Raise your hand if you know what a falconer is. See, that's what I mean by social justice. Like in my neighborhood, we didn't do no falcon stuff.
We got dragons.
Thank you. Falconry is the art and practice of hunting the wild quarry with a trained hawk and falcon eye. It's known as a sport of kings and dates back to almost 4,000 years, the oldest field sport known to mankind. Holy moly. He's also an avid whitewater rafter. He's known for the fact that he's a resolute defender of the environment, takes no prisoners approach. He was named by Time magazine as one of the heroes on our planet, one of the 100 most effective agents of change in our country. He just got appointed recently to the governor-elect in New York to his transition team. He'll be helping Governor Cuomo there in terms of energy, environment, and recreation. Kennedy Greenhouse. Has anybody heard of this? Raise your hand. Gotcha. He lives in Westchester, New York. He just did something called a green makeover by a green dream team. Major renovations to his house, got rid of the black mold from summer flood, architectural plans, eco-friendly environment, energy efficiency, retooling his home, health promoting, all those sorts of things. It's called the Kennedy Greenhouse, and it just got a very, very significant award. All right, raise your hand if you've heard of Ted Kennedy. Okay, this is a true Ted Kennedy story. Basketball. In my second year in the NBA, or third year, I'm traveling to Boston, and we're playing the Boston Celtics. And I took advantage of being a point guard and having a profile and could get access to people. So I called up Senator Kennedy. And I said, Senator Kennedy, can we meet? He said, yes. I was shocked. So I go into his office. This is the public version. I can't tell you the other version, but maybe for a different day. But the public version is this. I asked him, I said, Senator Kennedy, after we talked for about 45 minutes, I said, you are one of the key people on the education committee in our country. And what do you think of charter schools? Because our public schools are not serving our children to the degree that they should be. And this is like the early to mid-90s. And he scratched his head, said something funny, and then said, I don't know a whole lot about charter schools. So then I said, well, how are we going to fix the public education system in our country? So I haven't figured that one out yet either. So I left thinking, if Uncle Teddy doesn't know how to fix our schools, who does? So literally, I'm discombobulated. I'm leaving thinking, I'm a Democrat, he's a Democrat, he's a senior ranking, one of the highest ranking Democrat officials in the country, and he has no idea how to fix our public schools. About a year or two later, we're playing in Washington, and I tried to figure out who could I meet in Washington, and this justice named Clarence Thomas just got appointed. Remember, I'm a Democrat. So I said, I'm going to meet with Justice Thomas. So I called. He said, yes, he'd meet. And he and I have only the color of our skin in common. I'm going somewhere with this. Bear with me, other than stalling. So Democrat, as far liberal as you can get, Ted Kennedy, as much as you can get in terms of conservative, Clarence Thomas. So I asked Justice Thomas, after about 45 minutes, what do you think about education? He got real serious, got a deep baritone voice. And I said, well, what do you think about charter schools? He said, if I was a single parent, and I had a daughter who was in 4th grade, and she was trapped in a poor, failing school, I would do everything I could to make sure that charter school in my neighborhood, if it was high performing, that my daughter could go there. So I would support that, or I would support any school that gives children a high quality education. So here's the moral of this story. Don't judge a book by its cover. Stick to your principles, but you have to abandon your assumptions. Because I truly did not think the answer, or something I agree with, would come from Justice Thomas. Ladies and gentlemen, get on your feet. Robert F. Kennedy, play the music, Jr. Yes, in the house. To your left, come on up. So he's apologizing. No need to apologize. We were having a great time. You don't know this, but I gave you the longest introduction in the history of introductions. And I just want you to know, Maria, the First Lady, she told me to tell you that she loves you. And enjoy Sacramento while you're here. Again, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
Thank you. I'm really sorry to keep everybody waiting, and I hope that Kevin figured out a way to entertain you while I was delayed. I wanted to come here. I came here from this morning on my way home to New York from Vancouver. I wanted to come here because I've been talking to Kevin for many, many months about his commitment for Sacramento to make this a template, an exemplar of the new green energy economy. And I've been working for 25 years as an environmental advocate for Waterkeeper and for NRDC on these issues, and I've done all of the tools that Martin Luther King spoke about as the tools of the advocate: agitation, legislation, litigation, education. But over the past 5 years, I've become convinced that probably the most effective tool that we have is innovation. And that the heart of innovation is here in Northern California, and the innovation that we're seeing come out of Northern California today is transforming our country. And I'm very optimistic, despite the kind of troglodytes that we have running this country in Congress, We're seeing things happen on the city levels from extraordinary leadership from mayors like Kevin, but many mayors all over the country that really are, that harden you about the political talent in our country, but also from the business community. For the first time in my life as an advocate, we have a lot of business people on our side. We have big companies like Siemens, Investis, and General Electric. I'm on the board of the biggest green tech venture capital firm in the country, which is Vantage Point, which is located not too far from here. And these are companies, these to me are the most exciting things that I've done. And it, you know, I've understood for 25 years that we're not protecting the environment so much for the sake of the fishes and the birds. We're protecting it for our sake, because we understand that nature is the infrastructure of our communities, that if we want to meet our obligation as a generation, as a civilization, as a nation, which is to create communities for our children that provide them with the same opportunities for dignity and enrichment and prosperity and good health as the communities that our parents gave us, we've got to start by protecting our environmental infrastructure, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the wildlife, the fisheries, the public lands, the shared resource of our society. What historically and what lawyers know as the public trust assets, or the commons, those things that are not susceptible to private ownership, but by their nature are the possession of the entire community. The waterways and public lands, the landscapes that connect us to our past, to our history, that provide context to our communities, and that are the source ultimately of our values and our virtues and our character as a people. I started working for fishermen who were small businessmen, and that's who I've worked for, the people on the Hudson River. We have the oldest commercial fishery in North America. It's 350 years old. Many of the people I represent come from families that have been fishing the river continuously since Dutch colonial times. And they were small business people who saw their livelihoods being destroyed by large corporate entities who had the political clout to get away with breaking the law and polluting the rivers and stealing or privatizing these public trust assets. And if you listen to the big polluters or to, you know, their indentured servants on Capitol Hill and, you know, their sock puppets in the political process, you know, what they say again and again is that, well, we have to choose between economic prosperity on the one hand and environmental protection on the other. And what Kevin understands and what his message has been again and again is that's a false choice. In 100% of the times, good environmental policy is identical to good economic policy. If we want to measure our economy, if we want to measure our economy, and this is how we ought to be measuring it, based upon how it produces jobs and the dignity of jobs over the generations, over the long term, and how it preserves the value of the assets of our community. If, on the other hand, we want to do what the, you know, the big polluters and all their friends, their toadies at Fox News and talk radio and elsewhere are asking us to do, which is to treat the planet as if it were a business in liquidation, convert our natural resource to cash as quickly as possible, have a few years of pollution-based prosperity, we can generate an instantaneous cash flow and the illusion of a prosperous economy, and we can make a few people rich by making everybody else poor. But our children are going to pay for our joyride, and they're going to pay for it with denuded landscapes and poor health and huge cleanup costs that are going to amplify over time, and they'll never be able to pay. Environmental injury is deficit spending. It's a way of loading the cost of our generation's prosperity onto the backs of our children. And one of the things I've done over, you know, a quarter century as an environmental advocate is to constantly go around and confront this argument that an investment in our environment is a diminishment of our nation's wealth. It doesn't diminish our wealth, it's an investment in infrastructure. The same as investing in telecommunications and road construction. It's an investment we have to make if we're going to ensure the economic vitality of our generation and future generations. Now, the biggest crisis that we face as a global community is global warming, and also the acidification of the oceans, which is equally calamitous for civilization and for, you know, for all life on the planet. And the biggest challenge that we have is how do we use energy? We need energy for our communities and for our prosperity. how do we extract it? How do we deploy it? How do we distribute it? How do we use it in ways that don't injure, that don't diminish our prosperity as a community and a society, and that don't